Previously on Man Children the Atom. Who had a pony? I hate anyone who had a pony. I had a pony.
Signing up or logging onto the internet in the 90s and hearing it just scream at you was a foreshadowing that we all should have heeded.
Mojo is Elon Musk now.
Speaking of disgusting guys.
Hey, I'm right here.
She is signed on not as an employee, but as a contractor. She is a contractor.
What a fucking risk to have a chili date early on in the relationship.
I never thought of that. Get out of my home, you damn demon.
Hentai rhythm puzzle adventure Mystique. Right, and welcome back to Man Children of the Atom. This is our 5th episode, talking about episode 5 of X-Men 97, Remember It, and boy will I. Here we are, Brett, you and I back together again, but we are lucky this time to have our first guest on the podcast.
Yes.
We would love to introduce John Regan. They are the founder of Cactus Head Puppets, a longtime fan of comics and all sorts of other nerdly things. Co-founder, excuse me, I'm being corrected very elegantly. John, say hello.
When do I talk? Oh, I talk now. Okay. Hi, I'm John. What do I say?
John and I have known each other for decades now.
An unreasonable amount of time.
Since 2001.
Oh my God, I've known you for significantly more than half of my life.
For all of the aughts. All of the 2000s, basically. We went to UConn together and lived in the same dorm freshman year.
Now, what is the cursing? Are we keeping it curse light?
Go for it.
Oh, okay, good. Because you taught me the word fellatio, and I didn't know if that was important.
It will be. Stay tuned.
Good. Yeah, but no, yes. Hi, Matt. Hi, Brett. I do puppets with my wife, Megan. We're Cactus Head Puppets, and I just love the shit out of some X-Men. I was happy to be. I didn't know I was your first guest. This is very like, ooh.
Well, and let me ask. We'll ask you again at the end as well. But if people want to find out more about Cactus Head and your shows, where they can see, where should they look for that information?
A plug up top. Ooh.
Hell yeah.
You just cactusheadpuppets.com. Turns out it's got pretty great SEO. No one else is a Cactus Head puppet. Actually, that's not true. There's one other thing that comes up, and it is
It's a weird porn site, Cactus Head.
No, actually, it is in England, and it is a gentleman who is a DJ at a bear nightclub, at a gay nightclub, and it's just, I know, right? If it's got to be something else, it's unlikely that we're gonna hit each other's business.
You need to do a crossover. You need to cross promote. Do it. Have him provide the soundtrack for one of your shows.
Yeah. But yeah, it's you were talking about how you were doing this podcast, and I was like, "Ooh, yes. Why don't I do the most brutal episode of the series? That'll be great."
I remember because we were playing our D&D, etc., whatever miscellaneous games you play, and I could see you didn't even think. You just dove on it. You're like, "I want to be on the show, and I want episode 5," and I could almost see the instant regret in your eyes. Like, wait, do I actually want to do that?
Oh,
here you are.
No.
And you know what? We haven't done a podcast before either, and it's been a lot of fun, and we're glad to get your feet wet in it.
Plus, I've never used this microphone before, so I'm feeling very fancy.
Nice. And Brett's back from the bathroom finally, and he's finally going to speak.
That's the amount of respect I usually give to I will give to all guests going forward. When they speak, I'm just out of the room. I'm like, Matt can handle this.
All right.
Even if it's one of your friends, you're gonna be like,
my brother has asked to be on it. He's talking. I'm out doing something.
Whoa. Your brother wants to be on it?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things go.
John, you beat Brett's brother to be on this show.
I was gonna say, to Brett's brother, sorry. If you're listening.
All right. And Brett, how have you been doing?
I've had to watch this episode twice now because we were going to do this meetup and then we had to cancel because things came up. So I've now seen this episode a total of, we'll call it 3.5 times. And every time I see it, I'm like, I cannot believe, because they kind of sucker punch you with this episode. We're like the first.
They go so hard.
It's like, so I looked at it today. This is the second longest episode. It's 36 minutes long. And I'm going to say the first, I don't know, 20 minutes just sort of lulls you into a sense of like, oh, it's kind of like a talky episode. We just sort of finished an arc with Inferno. We had the Motendo episode and all that and Life Death. This is like we're resetting the table. Like Genosha's here. Let's check in with all these characters. And then there's like, oh, that's a weird thing with Jean Grey. Oh, that's a weird thing with Madeline Pryor. Oh no, what's happening now? And then the last, call it 8 minutes, is just, and we could talk about it as we go, like what this is referencing.
We'll get there.
But this is the heaviest animated thing I've ever seen. I don't watch a ton of animation. I don't watch anime. So I'm sure there's other people probably yelling at this if they listen to it, that they're like, no, you got to see this other crazy thing that happened.
I admire your optimism. There's probably people listening to this.
They're going to have to. But this is, I could not believe how intensely they go about doing this episode.
The first time I saw it, the episode ended and I just sat in silence, just let the credits roll, and like just that, oh my God, we're not getting a resolution. We are just gonna just let that hang. And I respect it. Like
that was the resolution. But we're starting at the end here, fellas. What are we doing?
Yeah, we got to start at the beginning. This is absolutely right.
No, let's start before the beginning. Yeah. John, tell us a little bit about your history with the X-Men franchise.
Don't mind if I do. The X-Men are, to this day, my favorite comic of all time. Yes. There was something about it when I was a kid that was so, I don't know. Someone once described it as like, it's kind of a soap opera, and it absolutely is.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes. The relationships are very important.
None of the other comics really ever struck me, but something about the X-Men, something about, now I find out later in life, now I'm getting ahead of myself. Suffice to say, the X-Men are amazing. I loved it so much. And it was honestly hugely, like, the idea of fighting for a world that hates and fears you is like a core part of my morality. Right?
Yeah.
Like, some people go to Spider-Man, and like, Spider-Man's amazing, but like,
literally, he was an amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yay! But just like the idea that like people are not going to necessarily like you. If you are weird, they're gonna hate you. But like you still have to try and love and protect them. And like because otherwise you're the monster.
Yep.
That they think, and
that
like
always resonated with me too.
And it turns out, I'm non-binary, she-leaning, bisexual, and like the way that X-Men and Mutant just maps very nicely onto the queer experience is
very much so
delightful, and something that apparently other people have thought of first, it turns out.
Like the writers and the
yeah. But just like the idea of a group of people who what they have in common is that they are wildly different.
Yes.
Even from each other.
Like, yes.
Even from each other, but lumped together in the eyes of other people.
Exactly. And that makes them a tribe. That sort of puts you there.
Yeah. And you mentioned Spider-Man. Spider-Man had done kind of the light version of that where like he's kind of unappreciated. J. Jonah Jameson doesn't like him very much. Get me pictures of Spider-Man. But X-Men really takes it to that next level of like, it's not just the newspaper who's slandering you. It's the world legitimately hating you.
And I remember when I was becoming a teen, starting to get tired of like, because, I was a white child in the 90s. So I was like, no, but everything's fine now, right? And so like when people kept hating the X-Men, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I hit my 20s and I was like, oh, makes perfect sense. Oh no.
I've called, maybe in conversation with both of you before, but the 90s, that very special era where if you were of our demographic, it was history's post game. Like it felt like everything important happened. Now we're just, we're running around, maybe some light DLC for fun, but it's like we're just basking in it. And it'll be this good forever. It'll get better, in fact.
There's no racism. Gay people are fine now.
There's an interesting, not to get too political, but there's an interesting framing that has been.
How dare you bring politics into the X-Men, Brett?
that has come up. That has come up recently.
Out of sci-fi.
That I actually think is really interesting, which is sort of recasting the '90s as it was kind of like the modern 1950s, where like there was a sort of we're not really at war. I mean, obviously we had war in Korea in the 1950s, but there was sort of like a boring aspect to it where there was a commonality. Both political parties were basically the same. Republicans and Democrats, there was not much separating them. And so there was sort of this, and you think about even like TV at the time, like TGIF, right? A lot of those shows were just like, it's an American family on Step by Step or Family Matters. And so there was a very Leave It to Beaver-esque sitcom-y feel to a lot of the media at the time. Obviously there was other stuff like, there was edgier things going on, but the mainstream media,
I didn't see them.
Was very much like post-history, communism is dead. We're just sort of like America's at the top. And so
capitalism won, and it's good for everyone.
It's good for everybody.
And when you think about it that way, even though obviously there were a lot of horrible things happening in the 90s, it kind of clicks in a way where it's like, that's why, like now, you see a lot of people, and by people I mean Nazis, being like, weren't the 90s the best thing in the world? And it's like, when you think of it as like a sort of modern 1950s, it's like, oh, that's why these really weird guys are like, don't you just want to be sitting in your room playing Crash Bandicoot all day long? And it's like, okay, so that's kind of like
no, you want to be a child.
Did Crash Bandicoot? Did Crash get red pilled? Did Crash Bandicoot get real into the
there was a podcast that he was on that resurfaced recently, and he said some really messed up things. Hey,
Joe Rogan's gonna have Crash Bandicoot
those
on
TV
next
masks in that game were very inappropriate, and he had some things to say about it.
Crash Bandicoot thinks Louis C.K. is still very funny. All right, we got a new joke to refer back to. Crash Bandicoot, the alt-right icon.
Oh no.
No.
Oh, but the more extreme version is Bubsy from Bubsy 3D. Like that's the one that they don't like to let him talk out in public.
No. Well, you do.
He's the Stephen Miller of the group.
So you have someone to be like, well, we're not Bubsy. Okay.
Yeah, right. Hey, that's the one. That's the one. He's one of the proud Bobcats. We don't talk politics on this show. This is just enjoying this for the messageless entertainment that it is.
The apolitical nature of the X-Men. This is a show for everybody.
It is so, and like, I have to not get too mad because it also took me, 30 years to really wrap my head around just how different the world was for everybody else.
Yeah, sure.
But
big time. Yeah.
It was also like,
especially you Connecticut boys.
Especially.
You were in Massachusetts. I apologize.
I'm a Massachusetts person.
No, Brett was alongside you castigating me and my people.
Yeah. No, we shouldn't hate people based on where they're from, except for Connecticut.
Yeah, I firmly believe that.
New York, Massachusetts, make up your mind.
That is what we're all about.
All right, we ready to jump into this? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that, like, even before I knew stuff about myself, you know stuff about yourself. And this was just like a beautiful world to escape in. The Uncanny X-Men was the only, because I couldn't keep track of all the different things.
Sure.
But I had a subscription to the Uncanny X-Men for like 4 years. And like, when things were real shitty, I'd be like, ooh, maybe the comic's there. Maybe the comic is there. Hooray!
A little gift every month.
Yeah. Especially with ADHD, you forget you get them.
That's a great point.
Wow.
And going back
the show. Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, well, no, I was like, you say the thing about it took you 30 years and blah blah blah, and where our roots and where we were growing up and everything. But I say this not in jest, like genuinely, I think a property like the X-Men, lays it doesn't it tills the field for those realizations to take root later.
Yes.
Because it does give you a little safe in a fantasy world with cool superheroes view into like the world is not great to everyone.
And that's like, if we're getting into the episode, I have some thoughts about that as well.
We are going to, but say a little bit more about. So you mentioned you had a subscription to Uncanny X-Men.
Yes.
I imagine probably watched the cartoons. So what other forms of media did you take it in as?
I mean, I like
Or other,
the game.
Other books you
no, I
follow?
hated the game, but I played the game.
Which game?
The game. There was one on the Game Gear, and it did that incredibly annoying thing that games did, where it only let you use the superpower like 5 times, and then you had to punch.
Yes.
Like if you were Cyclops, you had like 5 blasts, and then it was punching. And it's like, what do you?
Yeah. I think you fundamentally misunderstand what I want from this. I want to do those things.
Yes.
Anyone can punch. Yeah.
But then I learned that if you were Nightcrawler, you could just teleport through people and damage them.
Yeah.
And so I sort of cheated my way through. Then this fucking game. I had it on easy because it was like a bullshit game from the 90s.
Yep.
And I got to the end of like the 3rd level, and then it was like, to continue the story, try the next level of difficulty.
Oh, yeah, they used to do that.
No. They difficulty gated it? That sucks.
You motherfuckers.
That sucks.
It was, I will never forgive them. I never played it again.
Looks like you just got to get good, bub.
Right? I was going to say, it's like the time I was listening to the Phantom Tollbooth as an audiobook, but it turned out it was only half of it to like encourage you to read the other half.
Oh,
and I was like, I read all the time. I don't need you to trick me into reading. I don't have friends.
But that was the thing games did. I mean, they may still do it now, but it was like you could beat it on easy, and they'd be like, we're not going to give you the whole ending. You have to beat it on another difficulty to get like the full ending. They would do all kinds of things like that.
Oh, but this was like there were like 10 levels in this game, and it stopped you after 3 or 4 or something.
Now, my favorite version of that, though, the one that actually is when it's a new game plus situation. Yeah, you beat it, but there's still more stuff you can do, and you're gonna keep everything that you've worked hard to earn. You're gonna keep it.
Yeah,
have fun.
Yes, the games I enjoyed the movies, but predominantly it was. Can we talk about? I remember the Phoenix Saga was happening in the cartoon.
Sure.
Yes.
And I remember sometimes I can't remember what channel it was,
Kids.
but
Fox
like
Kids,
Friday night. Yes, Fox Kids, the Friday night before when they were starting a new thing, they would have like an hour where they just played like 3-minute clips from each of the new cartoons. And I remember being like, just like setting aside the whole day of like, all right, tonight, to see this 3-minute little clip from the show I'm going to watch tomorrow. But like, I'm going to get it. That, and then I don't know how much of my brain is in the Claremont era. But like that's the X-Men for me. Like I went back and read the OG stuff, but like
absolutely.
Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Gambit, Rogue, like love Jean and Scott, but like they're Jean and Scott. Except now they're not.
The book was a fine average comic book until that era.
Yes. Because the weirdos were all pretty much identical. You know, they were still handsome white people.
But Beast's hands are big. What a freak.
Look at monster.
Look at this freak. He's college educated, but his hands are big.
Just wearing his underpants around.
And are there any X-Men storylines that have really stood out to you as making an impact on you?
So weirdly, I didn't read a lot of whole comics. I did a lot of like getting little bits. Except for the Uncanny X-Men. But, like, I remember there was I picked this up, a classic X-Men from, like, a Kmart, right?
Okay.
And it was the one with the Brood. And it was when I fell in love with Wolverine. Because it was that level of, like, you know how all the best Supermans, or maybe don't, but all the best Superman stories are not about will Superman lose? It's, like, what can he save, and what is it like to have that much power, right?
Yeah.
And in the Brood one, like, all of the X-Men are taken over by the Brood. Mm-hmm. And the only reason Wolverine isn't taken over is because of his healing powers and his adamantium skeleton. Like, it wasn't even the powers. His skeleton was like the the thing it couldn't eat and transform.
Right. And then his body treated it like the parasite that it is. And
Yeah.
I remember that.
I actually just read that issue, that whole arc, the brood, the battle with the brood.
The brood were
That's
terrifying.
when Binary was chilling with him, right?
Yeah, Carol Danvers becomes binary. Storm has a really cool
she does.
sort of arc in that where she like kind of like dies and gets reborn. I know.
As happens.
Yes. That was great. I have those issues in long boxes in storage.
Yep. But I enjoyed a lot of that. I enjoyed a lot of the like anything with Kitty Pryde. I always enjoyed.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But I really, really loved when they were home. Like those were always my favorite issues. Yes. When they were just like hanging out and talking, like after all the shit had gone down. Like I don't know if this is in the comics or the show, but there's this moment where like Wolverine is out hunting and Storm's like, you can't kill that thing. And he's like, I was just going to touch it. I don't know. I just love like the daily lives of these people.
Yeah.
And like finding
that was one of the strengths of it.
And finding moments of joy. Like so many comic books, it's just a nonstop slog of like awful things happening to people all of the time. But the X-Men always had these moments of joy to like be like, oh, that's why we're fighting. Oh, okay.
You know what really helps that, especially in the comics, but I think they do a good job of it in the cartoons as well. It's really helped by the fact that they're supposed to be teenagers, like they're all young.
Yes.
And so there are these moments of like, even in the last episode where it's Jubilee and DaCosta in her room, and like the New Mutants, they're all teenagers, and so there's always in Kitty Pryde, like you mentioned, she is always sort of like the light heart of that team, and so there is always. In like somber moments and moments that aren't gritty and real, that are really, they really make those the tense moments have more weight because like, they're fighting for the joy. They're fighting for, that nice stuff. It really, it's always been a really big strength of that.
It gives us a reason to care about them. All right.
But can I just say, right now,
you may.
Actually, no, this will come up later. Never mind. That was a preview.
Yes, later on the show, things will be said. So speaking of caring about these characters, let's talk about the episode that punishes us for doing so. Let's get into Remember It.
Which could simply be called Everything Falls Apart.
Things fall apart. So we start
Joy never lasts.
This Trish Troby interview with Beast.
We start with her intro to it actually outside where they do a good job of capturing that like 90s I'm saying like shitty dog whistly things and don't even realize it tone.
Yes. and the video was so good. The way they like put it into the right aspect ratio and drop the quality down.
Well.
Yes.
Some people call them freaks.
I can't say I never have.
Wow. Okay.
And it comes up a few times in the episode, but like they do a very good job of capturing that exact, like go watch some news interview type things from the 90s. It's like, oh God, that tone was everywhere. We're letting the public judge you, but I'm going to act kind about it.
Huh. Some people call them rapists.
So Brett, you were saying,
speaking of the video outside of the mansion as she's sort of like setting up this piece, I wrote down a quick note of bold move to let their enemies know where they live. They're just showing this mansion. Like, this is where the X-Men are.
Well, I feel like at this point, they know. Like, I think it was secret in the comics in the show for a while, but then, like, it got out at some point. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, so they're riding on this.
I'll stop nitpicking.
Ostensibly, public sentiment has turned in mutants' favor at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like in the same way that like Target will put up rainbow flags, like there's this like shallow level of acceptance.
So long as I don't have to do anything to change my life, I'm for this.
Yes. But so as you say, Brett, she starts talking to Beast as her first interview.
They have a brief moment here where they're kind of hitting on each other.
Hell yeah. And they, in the comics, had a thing. So that works.
Did.
We get on this show, our favorite Beast is Dr. Beast when he has his lab coat on. But I really like Beast in a nice dapper suit. He's looking very nice here.
Oh,
you're not wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot. it really twisted the knife once you've watched it once, because at the beginning on the previously on X-Men, it's Gambit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they
He's
really
just like
let you.
previously on X-Men, and I'm like, no, not to spoil
And
it.
yet, and Brett, I agree. If we were doing the tier list ranking of Beast looks, I would put Suit Beast as an A tier. Nothing else is an S tier with Doctor Beast, but this is a solid A tier look.
Oh,
He always they just do a real. I just like when he's like very professorial, like he's about to teach a class. His jacket has patches on the elbows. I really enjoy that about him.
I really love when sometimes they get it. I'm already tangenting, but like when they like peek behind that mask of his, because like
Yeah.
it is a mask. Like yes, he is that scholarly, but he also is like performing hard to like not be
Yeah.
beastly in any way.
Yeah, and like
You know?
even one of his first arcs is he's in prison and like trying to be a model and stand his day in court.
Yes.
It's the model minority stuff playing
Yeah.
out. Yeah,
They
Yeah.
do a thing here that always it doesn't drive me crazy, but I always find it very funny. Is whenever a show or a cartoon is like, oh, we're doing an expose on these people and we're showing you footage, and it's always footage that they could not possibly have gotten because it's showing us just like clips from previous episodes, and it's like, how are they doing this? How are they airing this stuff? It's like these
Although
internet
there was a,
I
I
got
remember
this
it-
on my GoPro, bub.
I think there's actually one through a window of Jubilee
Yes.
and
And
oh, what's
Jean
his
is like
name?
doing the dishes with Scott
Roberto.
behind her or something.
Roberto,
Yeah.
yes, and I loved it because like, oh, we've accidentally outed him.
Yeah,
Because at this point, I don't think he's told his parents.
that's true.
And it shows him putting his hand on Jubilee's hand in that little scene. Like,
Sure
oops, we're
does.
just going to accidentally out you to your parents. Sorry.
Well, I mean, they're
Something that's
rich.
never
They probably don't watch the news is for the poors. I think
That's
it
fair.
is for the
That's
Costa
fair.
family.
But they might be rich enough
What-
to have
wait,
people watching the news
What do the
for
rich
them.
watch, Brett? I want to hear this.
I don't know.
Nothing?
I've never been rich. I don't know rich
human
people.
fights to the death.
Well, I mean, that is true. They're
Yeah.
they're paying people to murder each other for their enjoyment. But we
Called capitalism, and it helps all of us.
we
Yeah.
transitioned from Trish Trilby talking about this to now we're riding with Magneto and Gambit and Rogue to
Rogue.
Genosha, and we
And
get
boy,
to,
are Gambit and Magneto really aware that they're both riding in the same plane as Rogue.
Mhm.
so much so that Magneto jokes that if anything goes wrong, he's letting him fall to his death.
Yeah,
He's like, you're the only one
Yeah.
in this plane for whom gravity would pose a problem.
But the funny thing is, it's not like Gambit said something like rival-ish there. He wasn't even like hitting her. He's just like, this is taking a long time to get there.
It's a
And
real
he's like, fuck you, I'll let you fall.
Bart and Lisa Simpson, are we there yet? And he just says,
Are we there yet?
drop
Are we there
dead.
yet? Are we there yet? Well, I also love because, like, I feel like without Remy, they could have just flown.
Yeah.
Although they do a
yeah,
lot
I
of-
guess so.
They do a lot of people can fly, but they go on the jet anyways. And actually, I kind of like that because flying, like, I can run, but I still take a car.
Yeah, exactly.
We get to Genosha, and I really like that. The show does this all the time, but we get these couple of seconds of just like showing us Genosha, right? There's no
Yeah, Genosha fucking rules.
yeah, there's no voiceover really. There's no plot here. It's just there's really not even any like character. It's just showing like kids running around, and it does such a good job again of having you lower your guard, of without really even making you realize it, like bringing you into this burgeoning community. You're like, this is what it looks
And
like.
this whole thing is so hard for me because, like, it is so rare in media to see different people being happy. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
so often,
Yes.
like just queer joy is.
Yes.
I did not grow up with that. I grew up with if you're
No.
gay, people will drag you behind a truck. And like, yes, that was true, but like, why are you telling me this? I'm 9. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
in which is a thing in media for a lot of different groups, right? Like there's the I don't know if I'd call it a joke, but the idea of like, well, there's really only a movie starring black people if it's about slavery or like the streets. And and so
absolutely.
and so this idea of like you can't tell these stories unless they're stories based on the horrors of those experiences.
Yes.
And so to sort of have this be the complete opposite of that, at least for the first 20 minutes or so.
And for the record,
Oh.
we the filmmakers aren't racist. We just think our audience is racist, and they won't pay us if we have any characters that don't look just like them.
I think it also does like it reinforces a thing that I thought as a child, but like never thought, which was I'm glad I'm white. Like even if you weren't aware that you were thinking it, you were like, boy, everything I'm seeing means it sucks to be anybody but me.
Yeah.
Which also meant don't ever let down the disguise. Because like I'm non-binary and I'm bisexual, but I've also been married to the same woman for 19 years. So it's been incredibly easy for me to hide, you know?
And you picked a good one.
Right? That's just pretty dope.
We're fans of Megan. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an official podcast stance. Megan Regan.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Yes. Mansion
like,
of the Atom is pro Megan.
even knowing that though, like just to see joy, you know, and not just joy, but that like so there's something this did that I never see in science fiction of any kind, which is what kind of art would you make with all of these powers? Right?
Yes.
Like that moment where like multiple man dances, but like in a line of multiple men and like people are phasing through each other. I just love the idea of like, if we weren't constantly fighting for our lives, what would we do? You know?
Yeah.
And it's something that, and we've talked about this a little bit, like with the comics, like the downtime in the comics, and the movies don't really do this, maybe once or twice, but it's like you get this shot of the kids just like playing with their powers, right? They're not running from somebody. They're not fighting somebody. They're just playing. And there's a funny little thing where like she's almost like a fairy mutant, and she like flies away, then she turns to run away, and she runs right into a wall. And it's such like an innocent, goofy little thing, but it's like these are just kids being stupid.
Oh, they're from one of my favorite comics in the X-Men. I forgot. I can't remember what it was. I don't know names. I'm real bad at this. But it was I think it was like the Jean Grey School for Mutants.
Was this during like the Grant Morrison era? I didn't really read any of those.
Maybe. But it was the one with like the kid who wore the like Magneto was right t-shirts.
Yeah.
But it was a lot
when they had
more,
like a whole bunch of young students, like teenage students.
Like they made it a proper school, and there were like lots of kids with. So like there's a lot of mutants who can look normal, and then but like a lot of the kids that ended up there were kids whose powers, like that big blob guy.
Yeah.
With the skeleton in him.
I think his name is Glob Herman.
It's oh my god, it is Glob Herman. But like that guy.
Which is great. He didn't just become the Glob. He's like, I'll just keep my last name. I'm Glob Herman.
You know, but like it was
from Herman Mitsubishi.
Beautiful and then awful that I saw them there. It was like, oh, but you're right. It was those moments of them like finally not being like, this will kill me, and playing with these powers.
Yes, and I want to. And John, you touched on the episode, touched on it later. We have in a lot of like prior seen these examples of we have seen moments of joy. We have gotten those. We've seen them use their powers in ways that are like, oh, that's kind of fun. That would be fun to play basketball. That would be fun to cook that way. But I think what we see that I don't know that I've seen before with this show is the cultural piece. What if it was in dance and art and architecture and music? And it's like, this is very, very cool.
And not to jump ahead, but there is that when Rogue is talking to Gambit and she's sort of recapping her romance with Magneto. Oh yeah. She mentions that it's a view of Magneto that I feel like I have not gotten from the comics before, which is that he is sort of like this mutant intellectual, where he's like, mutants are going to have our own type of art. We're going to have our own type of music. We're going to have our own type of architecture. Yes. And again, you know, you think about any other, whether it's queer culture or Black culture or Hispanic culture, where it's like, we are going to create something that is wholly ours and is wholly different than what has come before. And we never get to see him.
Finally, something new for me to appropriate.
Yeah. And so we never get to see him as like a James Baldwin type figure, right? Where he's like talking about this in a way that is intellectualized and cultural, that is kind of obviously influenced by the lived experience, but just sort of like outside of it as well.
Yep.
It really struck me again watching this, how much like when I was a kid, we were always supposed to like MLK, a very sanitized version, but like, and Malcolm X was the bad one. And like, but that like the idea that anyone who's like, listen, just give us our own land, give us our own thing, just leave us alone. That was bad because what we were supposed to do is all live together in harmony.
Sure.
Which I then realized meant everybody lives together the same as us, and so everything's fine. But like that desire to have your own culture and people is not exclusionary. It's not about denying other people things. It's about having something that is your own. But yes, I think we get more of that Magneto actually in the Age of Apocalypse, which I feel like a lot of this nodded to the Age of Apocalypse.
Oh, interesting.
Like the whole thing with Rogue and Magneto, like maybe Age of Apocalypse was my favorite one, but like they were they were married in Age of Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm. They had a kid,
and like
Charles.
They had a kid named Charles. Oh my god, they no, my butt.
That was a very cool crossover.
Yeah. Oh wait, you've probably talked about this a lot, but it is such a mind bend that like I remember being so frustrated by the X-Men as a kid because it would take like 5 episodes to finish one story. And like for me that was a month, and like I'm a child, so that's literally the entirety of existence. And this, they're like burning through, like they're catching up on like 50 years of X-Men in like 10 episodes.
It's one of the things we have talked about a lot already this season is the pace with which this season moves, and it's
wild
to the detriment at points. I respect that they are mostly doing a good job covering a hell of a lot of ground, but it does mean we do miss some of that. And we've cited in season 2 of the original cartoon, there was that drip, drip, drip. Like you get 2 or 3 minutes of it every week of Magneto and Xavier in the Savage Land. And it made everything feel connected and cohesive, even as they're doing these one-shot episodes.
Although I hated it. I hated it. Anytime a show's whole thing is, wouldn't it be great if we reached this point? And then like there can be no show if they reach that point. So you're destined for like frustration. Yeah. Like Charles Xavier was gone or unconscious for like 2/3 of that whole series. You know?
But that goes back to the comic. I mean, he's constantly getting sick or having to go into space, or he's in a an astral plane.
I've got Shi'ar diarrhea again. I'm out of commission this week.
It's called Shi'aria. Read a book.
Chancellor Araki, bring me another roll.
Nice pull.
We are delayed. We are avoiding making progress.
No, I was going to say, and then that was where the episode ended, right?
You know what though? But I can get us back on track.
Matt.
They land, they get there, they greet Madeline Pryor, and Gambit immediately makes a reference to threesomes.
Hell yeah!
He goes, 2 are always better than 1, and far better than 3. ... Sometimes. This dude is horny throughout this entire episode, and I love it.
Oh, he can't touch his girlfriend ever. Of course he's horny.
I know.
And it turns out like, oh no. But at this point, when it was still hopeful, I was like, oh, we get to see Madeline Pryor again. They didn't just send her off with her goodbye at the end of that episode. Nope, she's part of the universe. It's like, great. This is great. I'm happy to see her.
And I liked how they touched on this is what I was talking about like just throwing in things like, do we spoil the end of the series? Like, do you talk about the rest? Well, hang on, but
in kind of like vague terms. No, we talk about it. We just don't.
Like the whole thing of Scott and Madeline talking in their brain, which was a great moment.
Yes,
because we don't know. We think he's just talking to Jean, and that's a reference to there was a whole thing where I don't know if Scott died or she died or someone died and their psychic bond got broken. And then he starts having an affair with
Emma Frost.
Emma Frost, yes.
Who's in this episode?
She is.
Scott has a type. It's telepaths.
Telepaths who don't take a shit.
Yep.
He likes ladies that can read his brain.
Scott! Can we? I think you talked about this the first time, but I love how much Jean appears to have actual emotions and things.
Oh,
yes.
Because
we have talked about this.
How many times in the original series was she just like, Scott, Professor, Beast?
She can be a little bit of a wilting willow until she becomes the Phoenix, and then she's like this world-conquering badass.
But she went from Willow to deity, but in this she gets to be a person.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
Yes. Well, there's an interest. Have you ever read the Refrigerator Diaries?
Oh, wait. I think that's a book that literally Tracy took out for me from the library, and I haven't started reading it yet.
Okay, it's very good. It's very intense, but basically it's in hell, or it's in some sort of afterlife, and it is all the women of superheroes. So
Who have
like
been just
there's a
plot device
Spider-Man
killed.
and there's a not Mary
Gwen
Jane.
Stacy?
A Gwen Stacy analog, because the woman who wrote it, and
Yeah.
I can't remember her name, and someone looked this up. The Refrigerator Monologues, I think it's Refrigerator Monologues, but like she was watching the new Spider-Man 2, and they did the same thing where Gwen Stacy becomes a person, and then her only job is to die for Spider-Man to have revenge. And so this whole book is just versions of them talking about how, basically they live their entire lives for these people and then die. And how, like, in the Spider-Man analog, like, it was all about their relationship. And I mean, I won't ruin it if you want to read it, but one of the things that they get to is a Phoenix analog.
Okay.
And, like, the idea being that, like, there are lots of omnipotent super beings often, right?
Yeah.
But, like, the Phoenix, yes, she was near in omnipotent, but she was also controlled by her emotions and a danger to the universe because she would lose herself and destroy everything. And it's like, oh shit, okay, yeah.
The author of that book is Catherine Valenti, illustrated by Annie Wu. And I believe...
I love Catherine Valenti.
I could be wrong. Oh no, I'm blanking on her name right now. But the comic book writer who came up with the term like refrigerated or women in refrigerators.
Was it Gail Simone?
It was Gail Simone. I believe.
I
could be wrong, but I think it is that she invented that term.
Yes, the girl in the refrigerator. You got refrigerated, and it. Oh
yeah.
But yes, you're right. They have their own moments. They have their own. This is sort of on topic, but like that moment after that, when they're finally like having it out. Where like the pressure of trying to maintain what it is to be Scott and Jean, because that's a real pressure,
They've done a good job, not just in this episode, of me presenting it so I can truly see both sides of the conflict in their marriage.
Oh my God!
I
feel you both. Like you're both kind of right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that's so. We get this scene in Genosha, but then we're brought back to the interview. Tropy is interviewing Cyclops. And I really like he does this thing. So like throughout the season, it does a really good job of showing Cyclops not as the Boy Scout, but as like a really competent leader and as a guy that is sort of relating to his teammates. But you could tell like in the interview, he's sort of like he's like leaning on the fireplace. He's like he looks like he's posing for like a prom picture. And it's like he's trying to be the Boy Scout in that interview. I think it's it's funny, but also an interesting sort of look at him.
Yes,
I agree.
And then
before we get there, we cannot tread forward without acknowledging the arrival of one of the best X-Men of all. Fucking Nightcrawler joyfully bamps onto the scene, hugging Rogue, hugging Gambit,
Catholic monster.
Oh, and I love that the other characters who have like varying personalities, personas, they all like Nightcrawler. He gets along with fucking
everybody.
Everyone.
Loves Nightcrawler.
Yeah, even you see, like Gambit's cracking a genuine smile at the things Nightcrawler says.
Yes. Like if the other people, he's like, and then like he's trying to be like, but then he's
and
like,
this is the most Nightcrawler's ever looked. Like the proportions, the movement, the everything is like, they fucking nailed it.
The shadow on the upper part of his face, which I love.
Yep. Just
yes. Oh, I didn't
top marks.
Oh, it's so good. It's
his
so
$10 apple that he picks up with his tail. Actually, I like that detail, the $10 apple
too.
and Gambit's little comment, because here's another piece of the misdirection. Oh, the plot is going to be there's something sinister going on under Genosha.
When I first started.
Yep.
But it is an interesting. I mean, they don't need to do this, but it is an interesting. Like, starting a friggin' country from the ground up. It has some very weird effects. They are still into the economy of it, but it's like, food's probably going to be very expensive when there's just like we're just starting out. There's no industry. There's no nothing.
Oh, but I love to get back to Genosha, like just making food with their powers and like doing dishes with their powers and like doing.
They don't have to hide it from anybody. Yeah.
Yes, and not just not hide, but they can revel in it.
Embrace
like, they
it.
can,
Yeah.
They can be like, no, this is awesome. Like, and the only place where the like mutant queer analogy breaks down is that like there's nothing new about queerness. It was just like shoved down, but like it's not as exciting if they don't have powers. So, but there have always been weird people who could do things, and we were like, no, but you're different. I'll kill you.
But it's such a nice just illustration of how people act different when they're not spending every day some degree of afraid.
Oh, yes.
So,
but then
speaking of afraid, we get this great Jean. She's in the pond outside of the mansion, and she's like has parted the seas, and she has the balls of water that are like reflecting her memories. This is a really great, I just think, moment here where Jean is just like, she's telling Wolverine her feelings, but it's like a really good like, this woman's life has been shattered, and she's like doesn't know what's real or not. She gives into her emotions and does what every woman wants to do and French kisses Wolverine.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, I like, her appreciating that Wolverine actually feels like a constant. Oh, yeah. Right? He even says, this mug ain't changed in 100 years. And it's like, that's like an anchor point for this guy has always been, and he's always sincere. And
is that the same guy, by the way? Is that the same voice actor?
Yeah. What's his Gal Dodd.
So
yeah.
Good.
And the thing that we talked about in earlier episodes that is reflected here is the interesting thing they do with Wolverine is now that he is not a central upfront character in this, he plays much more of a supporting role. Mm-hmm. He's used as a way to have other characters kind of bounce off him as opposed to him just sort of being the leading light.
Yeah.
And so
I appreciate it.
There is something that people, that writers often do with Wolverine, which is like, because he has had such a fucked up life, people almost feel more comfortable with him because it's like, this dude's not going to judge me. Like this guy's kind of a murderer. He's done horrible things, but like, there's almost like there's no pretense with him. And so Jean almost feels like she can let her guard down. And I feel like that, like this scene is a really good illustration of that, where he, for whatever reason,
I think precisely because she knows he will stop her. He won't take advantage of her, even in a moment of weakness.
And that's interesting that you say that, because Wolverine is sort of always portrayed as like, not the ideal man, but like he very much has like a lot of those rougher aspects of masculinity where he has the berserker rage and he's calls guys bub, which he smokes cigars, but
drinks all the time. Yeah,
he is almost always friends with women characters.
Yes,
him and Jubilee, him and Shadowcat, him and Jean Grey, him and Storm.
Yeah,
and it's this weird thing where it's like he is sort of like the roughest aspects of masculinity, but he is always there's always a connection with him and female characters that good writers always seem to tap into. It's an interesting aspect of that character that isn't always explored. Like you don't really see that with a lot of the comics.
He gets very fatherly.
Yeah.
With them,
That's
true. It's like, because like, it turns out not all masculine traits are toxic, and like, like Wolverine and Sabretooth are the beautiful two sides of that coin, But remember that preview I had.
Yeah.
Just have a goddamn threesome. Just Wolverine, Scott, and Jean in a cabin for a weekend and just get it all out.
I've suggested it about a dozen times.
Who cares if you open up your marriage, Just fuck each other. Just get it all out. I mean, I understand it would ruin decades of like great storytelling to like relieve that tension.
I think
just,
Not having read them, and I hear there's some of the most interesting X-Men books to come out in years, but the Hickman, is that the writer's name? The Krakoa stuff. Yeah, apparently that's hinted at that that is how they resolved it, is they have like adjoining rooms. Yeah.
Oh, have you read House of X and Powers of X?
No. Is that, what am I thinking of? No, I think of House of M. Yeah. No, I've read House of M. I haven't read I've read the beginning
of House of X. I haven't read into it, but it's very. I think they actually took flavors of it for Genosha. Like,
yes, so this must be the same books. This is the Krakoa.
But like they
stuff.
had that sort of. It was run by, like they brought in Sebastian Shaw, they brought in the White Queen, they brought in all these people, and had like full amnesty. Anyone who's a mutant can come.
Sinister was there, wasn't he? And
Sinister was there.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, it was like. It's
Yeah.
oh, well, I shouldn't go off because that could be a whole nother podcast, but I love it so much because like one day, well, I'm gonna do it anyways. It starts with Charles Xavier coming out to the world and going, "Hey, we have created with our mutant powers a pill that will cure all forms of dementia, like all forms of Alzheimer's. We have created something that will cure all other diseases. We've created something that will keep your life going. Everyone can have access to these, but you have to recognize us as a state."
Yeah.
And I loved it because like
It's a good
he
move.
was like, you know what, you're never just gonna let us be. So here, you can have these fruits of our labors. You just have to have us be a nation. And like it was a great start of like, fuck it, just leave us alone. Here, have this.
Yeah. Right. And it's different than just like that we're going to take it by force. It's this much more.
Yeah, that either we're
Yeah.
just gonna take it or we're gonna take over.
In that
And
indignation
oh,
is in Scott's is how he ends his interview, where they ask about his
I-
son, and that
I
triggers
loved
him,
that.
it was so good.
and he gets very indignant for a little bit. And
And again, the realistically shitty 90s like invasive questioning. Oh,
Yes.
you know what you have to say? I looked up the hospital records. What about your son?
ridiculous.
Fucking leave him alone. For all you know, the son died tragically. Like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Well, that I mean
I mean, because partly that was the point, you know?
and it still happens now, but the whole like the very grotesque thing that news, I mean, a lot of things do this, interviews, where when somebody is like, oh, they're starting to cry, zoom in, get
Yeah.
those tears on camera, zoom in. And it's
And
all,
just
like,
that the anger felt so real.
Yep.
Like that he like because again, Scott can be written as a Boy Scout, or he can be written as someone as trapped by this as
Yep.
you know, he doesn't want to be the Boy Scout, but like he has to be. He has to
This-
keep it together. This is how he does it. And if he ever lets go, even for a goddamn second, he's gonna blast everybody into smithereens.
I think right from our first episode, this season has been the Cyclops redemption tour. Like this show gets how to write him, and the actor
And
gets how to voice him.
There's a
And
moment
the
shortly
real talk
thereafter.
version of Scott Summers rules when he's just like, I am not keeping up the pretense. Fuck you.
There's a moment. This show is also very good at like moments, like
Yep.
visuals, almost to its detriment sometimes because they're a little too posed, but they're so cool. I don't really care. But like, there's a moment where he's talking to Madeline Pryor, and I'd forgotten this wasn't Gene, but they do a zoom in so you can see his eyes under his glasses,
Yeah.
and like that was so beautiful because you never see Scott Summers' eyes, and like. I don't know. Something about it is really, it was really nice.
Well,
It was
it's
a good
what
touch.
is it? The old saying, the eyes are the window to the soul, and like he feels that isolation that he doesn't get to have
yes.
that real eye contact with people.
And like you don't ever think about it, but no, he can't see in color. He can only see red.
which is interesting because he
Can't
tells when
find
there's
a man.
when this interview is happening, concurrently with Jean and Wolverine, they're telling the same story. She's telling the story of Wolverine. He's telling it to the in that story, as Phoenix, she is able to take his glasses off and control his powers, and he can see her for the first time without the glasses.
Yep.
Oh,
And that brings me to the next scene is the Genosha Council, where they're like the Hellfire Club approaches Magneto, and they're like, "We want you to be our handsome leader. You'd make a good figurehead." And he gives this speech about he tells a story about Charles, like the first time we met was in this bar in Germany, and I felt like it kind of mirrored the Jean and Scott story, where it's like these people with these really intimate relationships, sort of telling you what it's like to go through, not all this crazy shit with clones and powers and all that, but like there's a real emotional toll that it takes. Like the show always centers it around like, not if these people were real and it's grounded and it's gritty, but like, in order to feel for these characters, you have to understand like this is not an easy road to ride. And I think they do a really good job of it.
yeah.
And really, I mean, again, this is a 36-minute episode, and
Jesus,
Rogue Magneto, Jean, Cyclops, Madeline, and Gambit, like they all get moments. Like it's six characters that all get a moment to be like, this is kind of where I'm at right now, and it sucks. And we also get a massive action scene.
And it wasn't meta. It didn't go that route.
Right.
But it was almost meta. Like they were aware of the importance of their story to other people and like how that can strangle you. Like recounting the tale of how you first met after 20 years, it doesn't have the same power because it was 20 years ago.
True.
I don't know where I'm going with that.
I don't know either, but I liked the makeup of this mutant counselor or whatever.
Yes.
And I will say,
have we talked about Daddy Magneto's shoulders? Because
we sure have.
Oh boy. I mean, I remember you guys saying that you didn't like his lips in the first episode,
no,
but I got to
creepy.
tell you, you're wrong.
Well,
Those are some.
they stand out because everything
they
else,
do.
what's not to like?
Yeah, they
What them lips do. No, but I appreciate. I will ride for Banshee. I love Banshee.
Oh,
I read
Banshee!
Generation X in the 90s where he was like Team Dad, and I was like, that's best Banshee. So he showed up, and I'm like, yeah, we're doing something with Banshee. And then later this, I'm like, God damn it, fuck
we're
you,
doing
show.
nothing with Banshee.
But I always like, maybe it's because I have Irish roots, but I was like, yeah, Banshee. I like Banshee.
And Dr. Moira McTaggart.
That's right.
And I mean, the thing with Banshee is, he's just cool. He's just a badass. But I feel like there was always something interesting happening when they were at McTaggart's lab. Like in the comic books, whenever they went there.
Muir Island.
Is she Legion's mother? Is that the thing?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No, she's Proteus's mother.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Legion's mother is Gabrielle Haller. Is that her last name?
Yes,
David Haller. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I've actually been watching the Legion TV show on FX.
I only ever saw the pilot, but I wanted to see more.
I watched it for a second time. It's so good.
We can do a different podcast about that another time.
Yes, please. It was so good.
But I just finished the first season. We'll chat about this later, John.
Aubrey Plaza. God damn. Sorry, continue.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic in it. And so now we get the scene where we think it's Scott and Jean, but it turns out that it's actually Madeline. We get this moment where we're just like living in Scott's grief, where he's like, I can't get over the fact that I gave up my son, basically.
Yeah.
It's just nuts that again, this cartoon about mutants and shooting clones and all, he's like, I mean, again, in the story, right? They had to give him up because he had this mutant virus and he went to the future. But the conversation itself is basically like, I've lost my, like, what a heavy thing to throw into these characters.
That
gone.
moment, was it episode 3? It was Cyclops' reaction to that, like, I can't do this to myself. Like that broke me a little bit because I was like, damn, that is exactly how he would feel.
Yep.
Yeah. Real good.
Yeah.
Real good stuff.
And we get the great reveal where Jean is just like, this is fucking bullshit. Where she invades the astral plane and breaks up this little love
and they're
nest.
both right. They're both right.
Yes. She's right to be upset. And also, how is he not going to still be in love with the one he thought
and
was
that is
her?
the mother of his child. You know?
Yes.
Like, it's not shitty for her. Like,
no, it's shitty for all of them.
Shitty.
They're both right. Madeline's also right. They're all right.
I do remember as a kid being like, a little part of me was like, girl, take the galaxy. Like, he's cute, but like, go surf a supernova. Jesus.
A little lighter note. If we were doing the tier rankings on Beast looks, let's throw Gambit in there. White Tux Gambit?
Yes.
That is A or S tier. That's a good look.
Woo. No, that's S tier.
Dude, he pulls it off.
There's nothing better than like the schlubby guy being like, I mean, if you want me to be pretty, I'll be pretty.
Yeah.
And then just like, but he's still got that stubble. He's got a little bit, you know.
And usually with the white tux, he pulls that hair back into a nice little pony.
Oh.
Yep. And you know what? If things didn't happen, he was 100% get with Maddie that night.
Yes, he absolutely was. I'm so glad you said that.
They were eyeing each other. Yeah.
I have a question here. Do you think he knew Rogue was going to leave Magneto that night?
No.
Or was he just hoping?
I think hoping. I don't think
because he said, but I also like that he didn't like. Because how do you say to someone, no, don't go fuck Magneto when you can't fuck anyone? Like,
yeah, no, and I appreciate he could have done like the blow it up like a 90s show, like him be a giant asshole about it, but he was just like, I'm disappointed.
And then somehow she's like goes after him because he's an asshole.
And it's a thing that I've mentioned in previous episodes, and I can see people being upset about it, but I do like that they present Gambit as a more mature version of himself, because
I do like that.
in
Yeah.
prior iterations, you could see him being like, "F this, I'm leaving this party. I'm not going to stay
Yeah.
here. I'm going to
And
go
I'm going to
walk
drop
the
an
streets."
exploding card on my way out just
Yeah,
to be a
exactly.
dick. Yeah.
But
Just to be
even
a
like
dick.
there's that great scene with him and Rogue where he's
Yeah.
like, "We'll just be friends,"
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's an interesting,
and he means it.
yeah, and
He means
it's
we'll be friends until then.
yeah,
Yep.
and I think
You
that
know?
it's a good way to write that character, because he's had
Yep.
decades of being the roguish asshole,
Yeah.
standoffish. He's like flirty, but then he can be cruel. And so to see him be like a more mature version of himself, which makes obviously the ending of this episode even more tragic. But I
Where he
think they
stubs
do a
his
good,
toe. The end.
yeah, they do a good job of making that version of him, I think, believable, because he still has some roguish comments, and obviously he's in the fight. He's awesome. But
Speaking
I
of
I do
roguish
like that.
comments.
What?
Said speaking of roguish comments.
Boo.
Yes.
No,
Boo.
it was a legitimate segue. When she's telling the backstory of Magneto and her and it looked like the Savage Land.
Yes.
And also like during their dance scene, boy, this is a cartoon where it's not all the time,
Wow.
but like these characters fuck. Like
Yes,
there
they
is
do.
sexual energy in these scenes. And it's not gratuitous, but it is
Quite literal
present.
electricity. Like,
Yeah, it's
oof.
like
But
it's handled very well.
Before they dance, I'm sorry, before they dance, there are two absolutely killer lines here. The first is what's the liaison from the
His good
government?
line.
Val Cooper.
Val Cooper comes out,
Yes.
and she goes to there's Emma Frost and goddamn
It's a
what's his
great
face,
Sebastian Shaw.
Sebastian Shaw,
Sebastian Shaw.
and somebody says, "Is there a problem?" And Emma Frost goes, "Is it your dress?"
Yes!
Just
Yes!
just dogging on this woman's attire. Absolutely
I love
insane.
what pricks in the comics too. I
Oh.
love like not just villains, they're fucking pricks, and I love it.
Oh, they're Lee's
And
assholes.
I loved, she's like, she's like, never mind. I forgot what she's like, countries aren't like blah, blah, blah,
This is the
electing
line, yeah.
terrorists.
Yes.
And then,
Yeah.
and only Magneto could say this without sounding like a 15-year-old. He's just like, yet so many allow their leaders to become terrorists themselves.
Yes,
Or
that's
something like that. And he delivers it with the gravitas of like, no, I know, I see through your bullshit. You kill millions, you overturn governments. I'm very
Almost-
like,
Almost every Magneto line in this season slays, with the notable
Oh my
exception
God.
of Brimstone Clone, which you've
Yes.
covered previously.
that's fair. But like this whole episode is just him dropping bangers. Like,
It rules. It
really
just rules.
Rogue descends.
And then we get the Ace
Rogue
of Base
descends.
song.
with the hair up.
Yeah. And I got to say, the music starts, right? It's instrumental and then like chanty vocal stuff. And I'm like, this sounds like this. Okay, this fits the setting. It also sounds realistically nice. Like, oh, no, it literally is nice. This is fucking Ace of Base. And
Is it really?
It's a perfect fit for the scene. Like, good job reaching back into the archives of music and being like, here's the 90s song that fits this moment.
And I
well done.
loved the dancing. The dancing
Yeah.
was so, like, I already said this, but let's keep going. There's only like one sci-fi book I think I've ever read where they talk about the kind of art we would do once we're in space. And it was like, it might have even been a Heinlein book, but that like on the moon, they have a specific kind of ballet they can do because it's 1/6 gravity.
We
And
are
I
the
love the
Moonanites.
idea
We are from the
that
moon.
like, yeah, he wrote that, right?
Yeah.
But they're just like, they can fly, and they have to spend all their time fighting and shit. But for like this brief moment, they got to like dance through the air,
Yep.
Oh,
It's great.
it was beautiful and joyful. And
the
then
lighting.
Until
The lighting
it
is
wasn't.
fantastic.
the lighting
Yes.
was so good. Oh,
Yes.
Well, it really sells the idea. I mean, obviously, it's not groundbreaking. It's not new, but they with the music, like it's very chanty, like you said, and with the lighting that they're doing, it does feel like it's its own unique. Like there's like almost like a Caribbean feel to it because it's an island, but
sure.
but so it just I mean, in like the colors, obviously, like it's the pink and the blue. It's queer lighting. It's bisexual lighting, as they call it. So it does have all these elements coming together to make something that feels unique. And it's like,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
this is a mutant world.
And
It does kind of crescendo here with this dance at the gala,
yeah.
where and
Okay,
everybody else starts dancing.
before we cross the threshold,
Yeah.
um, I understand that in a serial like this, there can be no happy endings because otherwise you have no story that gets to keep going. But like, I would love a comic that's just the mutants living happily. You know,
Yeah, I know what you
like
mean.
it's
Yeah.
just them on Genosha dealing with rent or some shit. You know, just like living a happy life. Like
Yeah.
not to cross over here, but like, have any of you watched the new Star Trek, the Brave New
Strange New
Worlds?
Worlds.
Strange
I
New
have
Worlds,
not.
thank you.
I've heard it's very good.
Okay, Strange New World fucking slaps.
Okay.
Discovery is good, but like they have a scene in it where like in the third season where they have a non-binary character and it's so 90s like I just don't feel I feel better as but like this is like 1,000 years in the future. Brave New or Strange New Worlds had a non-binary character and they just used the non-binary pronouns and it never came up.
Mm.
Like that's
Like-
what I want. I want a future
Like they do with
where
Morph. They do that with Morph in this fucking
Do they?
season. They
Oh, I
Morph is
missed
they.
that.
Morph is they.
They
I
just
have
called
to, I have
Morph
to,
they.
I have to watch this whole thing again because I really like
Yeah.
powered through it
Sure.
once because I didn't have a lot of time. But
Fair.
you know, sometimes just having a world like just joy, like
Yes.
a thing where they're not suffering, but it's
Just
the
showing
X-Men,
also
so-
just existence. Just
yes,
we get the harbinger that things are about to go. It's a little bit cliched in terms of like a visual signal, but the nosebleed, Maddie's nosebleed, which I feel like a lot
it's
of times
still
is
done
handled
real well.
a little. That's what I say. It's oftentimes kind of subtle, but here we linger on the drops of blood in a way that's saying like things are about to not be okay. And we're
Yeah.
not going to shy away from it.
I wrote that down. There's a scene of her walking away, and it just focuses on the blood drops on the thing, and I'm like, oh, no.
And here's Cable out of the clear blue.
Yeah, for like a hot second, and then he body slides, which I love that they kept that. I love that.
Involuntarily. Yep.
Is it called? Is it body slide?
Mom. Yeah,
Yeah.
body slide.
I'm sorry, Mom.
It happens involuntarily. I'm sorry. Yeah, and it's like
That is
Dead?
that good. When
Right.
she sees his eye. I think it's does she see his eyes? Is that what it is?
Yes, she
that
saw the
is
brown
what it
eyes.
is.
Yeah.
She recognizes her son's eyes.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, and then and here's again. I don't know if it's part of the sucker punch, but I don't know which part to call it. But it's Cable, so it's setting up this little hope, like, oh, the time travel. They're gonna
His whole
fix this
thing
with
is
time
fixing
travel.
the future.
Yeah. And it does not give us that, and it is. I respect it for it.
Oh, I noticed a real quick little thing, and I don't know if it was on purpose or if I was just looking for things to talk about on a podcast. But there's a moment, because we can't forget that Magneto is Magneto,
Oh, I never
and
do.
Rogue is pulling away, and he does grab her hand.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it's clearly involuntary, but like,
Yeah.
he does like grab her hand as she's leaving, and like I can't blame him, but it's a very Magneto like, I don't know.
But you are mine.
It struck me, you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well.
when Madeline and Cable chills, like full chills up my spine. Like
Yeah.
I know you're manipulating me, cartoon, but go ahead.
I read, and I don't know if y'all read the same thing, but so controversial former showrunner Beau DeMayo, who the fuck knows what the real story is there? I sure don't. But I believe I read that he said he wasn't there that night, but he would frequently go to Pulse nightclub where that shooter, and like this next sequence was the core of the cinematography was meant to evoke what it feels like to be in one of these awful, like way too common tragedies where
And it goes
they didn't have
so
warning,
hard.
right? We go from the
Nope.
dance scene to that, and we are in a bloodbath instantly.
The last thing we get is Cable is sort of getting pulled back through his portal.
Yes.
Says, I'm so sorry. And Madeline says, for what?
Oh,
And then it's just,
yeah.
there's like this green blast. In again, like the direction, I've said this so many times, the direction in this show is so fucking good.
Yes.
Where we get like this silence, silence, and like the pictures come in.
Yes.
So everything is like staccato.
because that's what happens.
Like
You
this-
can't take it
this-
all in at once.
No, nobody can.
And it's just this really effective. It's almost like we're like speeding up into a tragedy.
Yes.
Like we're waking up into a tragedy.
They're catching up with reality. They were in this
Yes,
little beautiful
that's-
bubble,
That's a
And
great way to put it.
suddenly
And,
it's catching
and
up to me.
because some of these characters we've known for years, and because some of them we just got to see, we just saw them, but it was in these moments of like joy. Every single loss doesn't feel faced. It feels like, oh fuck, I'm real upset that person's now dead too.
Even characters we don't
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm watching this, and it's like people, and they're getting
We do know Banshee, R.I.P. Banshee.
vaporized.
Oh yeah,
They're
fully.
getting vaporized.
Fully.
And I'm every time,
Brutally.
even today, I was like, cleaning the dishes and like kind of watching it, and it still is like, man,
No, it's final.
they don't. Yeah, there's a finality to it where it's like these people are dusted.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
And this is
it's very
when people live through these things, it's not faceless. These are their friends and family who they see. And it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's
It's fascinating.
wow, a cartoon went there.
How much this is just like they go there because this is what we all know now. That like these are
Yes.
things that happen. Where like in the 90s you never would have done this. But like especially post 9/11, like
These mass
giant
casualty,
horrible things
yeah.
feel different. Like I remember watching
Feels
the
more
original
personal.
or the terrible 90s American Godzilla. And like
Oh God, with
it's just
Matthew Broderick.
destroying buildings in New York City and everyone's like "Boo-ba-doo,
But you know what though?
Oh, gosh,
the funny thing about
Godzilla.
that, not to get too far away from this episode and this scene, but the thing that's interesting about that is we still kind of like every superhero movie is just that.
Yeah.
It's just there's a joke on a podcast that I know Matt, you listen to it
I
on,
have.
on
I
We Hate
haven't
Movies,
in a while, but I do.
where they say they have a recurring joke where they say, well, there's 75 9/11s, which is that's how movies
scale
end now,
of
which is
destruction,
just
yeah.
the scale of destruction is just Man of Steel. All these things are being destroyed, and it's not that it's joyous, but there's no real weight
Well,
to
it's
it.
cheap.
It's almost like
It's cheap.
Yeah.
it is. You're absolutely that's the
Yeah.
perfect word. It's cheap. Whereas this is like so intimate
Yes.
and so earned. There's a moment
Every loss feels unacceptable.
Nightcrawler saves Magneto
Oh.
and Rogue.
Oh,
And they land on the roof and he like does a tumble and Rogue runs over to him and goes to help him and has to stop
She
because
can't-
he can't touch
by
it.
because
touching
she
him,
let
yep.
her guard down because she
Yep.
put on a pretty dress.
Yep.
And there's like and it lingers on it for like 2 seconds, which for a cartoon is like a
It
long
is.
time.
For a 36-minute cartoon.
And she has to pull back.
Yeah.
She has to pull back and be like, "Oh, I can't help my friend right
Yeah.
now." And it's such a visceral
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And
No, that
again,
hit
You
me.
look
in a
over and like
cartoon-
Dazzler is dead
Yeah.
or dying. Shaw is dead or dying.
Yes.
Callisto is dead or dying. And it's like, holy shit.
There's a
Yes.
moment with Callisto that
Yeah.
like stole my breath, where they just focus on her face
The
and her
pupil.
her
Mhm.
pupil dilates.
Oh.
And you can see her living through every time this has happened over
To the
and
moral
over and over.
Because she almost looks like shocked,
Oh, yeah.
almost like there's like a look
Yeah.
on her face of like this is
like,
happening.
fuck, I let my guard down.
And-
I thought I was
Yep.
like,
And
Yes.
yes,
There it is.
Yes, we were in a safe
Yep.
place, and we get the line from Magneto. That's just like so totally Magneto. Again, it's an absolute
I think
right
I know
hook.
where you're going.
We shall not live our days
Oh,
wondering
wrote
if we
that
could have
down!
not saved more.
Yep.
we shall not live our days wondering if we could have saved more.
Oh, so
Oh.
And it's just like,
Fucking take me.
and again, it's this moment where they get this character
Yes.
where he
Yes.
he's a revolutionary leader.
yes.
Like this is
Yes.
a guy that's like, enough's enough. I'm going to magnetically pick up this fucking monorail
Oh,
and use it
train
as a
whip.
Fucking
And
nunchucks.
train
Train whip
whack this thing.
rules.
This
It moves so
this
hard.
makes me think of a thing that like I always thought that like empathy was just the key to making everything better, right? And I think it is important, but
It's
also
a key. It's not the
it's
only
a-
key. It's
but
a
like
key.
but that empathy is actually also the thing that can lead you to do truly horrible things. Because
Yeah.
if you love the people around you and you think they are hurting and you think that like you could do something and like you feel their pain so much and it can drive you insane and you do
yeah. If you see
horrible
their humanity and
things.
not other people's.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that is Magneto's
In-group
downfall.
out-group shit. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
it's that like he cares so. Although these days I can't really get mad at him because like it was right. Oh no.
But speaking of that empathy or that like the fragility of empathy, there's a moment where he hasn't done the whip yet. They're fighting and there's an explosion and he's kind of like looking around and people are dying, and it's intercut with scenes
Yes.
from the camp.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he just stands up. He goes, "They shall be avenged," and then he
That
does
is the train whip.
And
That's what
can-
leads
can I
into the
say
train whip.
I was really proud of them for only having like a flash of that.
Yep.
Yes.
I think there was one that was just very clearly that, and the rest of it was just
with
like
the
I think
chain
you're
link
right.
fence, the barbed wire
because
fence.
it's like a scene from this massacre, a scene from this massacre, Holocaust, a scene from this massacre.
He's living it
And
again. Yeah.
God damn it, I
Yeah.
love Magneto. God damn it.
Yeah, the best character in comics. Most interesting, at least.
Yes, I think so.
I've long held
Best
that opinion.
villain of all time.
Oh, easily. I also appreciate that, like, Gambit doesn't know that Rogue ultimately picked him, but they fall into working together seamlessly, unquestionably.
And they're bantering.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep the banter up.
There's no, like, we're going to be weirdly shitty for the sake of conflict. Like, no, they know what their priorities are. They'll sort their shit out on their own time.
And there is a time there where they're, like, trying to keep the banter. Like, you still feel like maybe it's going to be okay. Yeah. Like, because they do this. This happens to the X-Men all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
And Gambit has this great hero moment where he rides the Sentinel head through the glass.
And
just blew out all the speakers.
It's so badass.
Sorry,
and there's a real, like, meta multi-whatever thing here where in the books, Gambit has guilt around, like, letting the Marauders into the Morlock sewer and like allowing the Morlock massacre to begin. Here,
oh my God, that was
he gets
him.
to save the Morlocks.
Oh,
he saves them for, like, he very briefly saves them. Unfortunately,
no, he saves them.
So let's get to the well. He saves some
for
of them.
For about 90 seconds. He saves them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen,
we have Leech.
Oh,
you can some people. Oh,
poor Leech.
Talking to the girl, I forget her name, but she, like, has the multicolors.
Yep. She fades into the wall.
And he's like, Calypso will save us, if not Magneto, and the X-Men. And she's like, the X-Men don't like us.
The X-Men are no friends to the Morlocks.
And Magneto wraps the metal around Gambit and Rogue.
Yes, to protect them.
And he again, there's just the attention to detail where they have Magneto in German say, "Do not be afraid."
Oh my God, do not be afraid. Oh.
Like to say it in German,
Angst or whatever.
It's the only time. Yeah, and it's just like, again, like, there's a couple episode. Episode two. There's, like, this. It's great moment after great moment after great moment, and it's like, wow, what a great episode. This one is like devastating moment after devastating moment. They are just battering you with how sad this is. But I mean, it's also, again, it looks fantastic. Yeah. Like, it truly is hellish what they're showing you
to do.
Can I say, I think they do a really good job of, or rather, I was really afraid of this being a case of, yay, we're happy. No, now we're all victims. And, like, they are still victims, but, like,
they retain their agency.
Yes, they are being attacked by things, and they defend themselves. And, like, it is awful and it is horrible, but they are not, like, another group doesn't come in and save them. They do save
eventually
themselves.
Manage to
Well, that's why that Magneto line is so popular. Like, we shall not live our, like, it's just like this battle cry. It's, and
yes,
it's based, and maybe not based might not be the word, but it's in some ways inspired by the Pulse Massacre. This shit happens all over the place. It was a couple of days ago. There was a shooting at a school. I used to be a teacher. I have several friends who are teachers.
Jesus.
So just, like, this idea of, like, this defiant, like, fuck this.
Yes.
Like, we're not gonna let this ruin. Like, they're like, and to have Magneto be the character, like, it
this
shows
will bleed
for
us,
all the
but
horrible things that he does
kind of thing.
Yes.
For all the horrible things he does in comics, it's like, this is, like, the hero that this guy, like, what a hero he is in this community.
And another beat here that establishes, so it would have been so easy for a writer to say, and Magneto wraps the metal cocoon around Rogue specifically because it shows he loves her. He wraps around both of them.
No.
He doesn't even like
and it's because they will die.
It's a hero moment. Yeah.
And it is not even that, like, he doesn't want her to get hurt. It's she will die if she does this.
But he wraps Gambit in it too. It's not just an I love Rogue thing. It's like, I'm going to save my teammates.
As many people as many lives as possible.
Yeah. Rogue, she's gonna go on, like, this tear.
Yeah,
Gambit knocks her out of the way with the charged up bike.
Because she would have died.
And then,
and I love it because it was not a moment of the man saving the woman. It was a friend stopping a friend from killing themselves.
Yeah.
you know,
And then you
because
get
she
that-
is more powerful
and-
than he is.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Magneto's down. Like, the whole island's down. Magneto is now down. Rogue is now temporarily down. Gambit charging the thing alone. You're like, oh, this is going to go really poorly.
But like,
And-
so this is actually, it seems like Brett was about to say something and I don't want to.
Oh, apologies.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I loved, so this is my question for you guys. Was this just like Gambit being like, fuck it, I'm Gambit? Or did he know, or does it matter, but did he know that it wouldn't use the super death blast on him? Because it just didn't consider him enough of a threat. Because it only used that on like Omega level mutants or to level things. But when he's running at it, it starts using just like normal lasers.
I don't think it was a plan, but I think as soon as it made physical contact with him, like he knew exactly what he was doing from that moment.
But if he thought he was going to die, wouldn't he have? I feel like he wouldn't have sacrificed himself after stopping Rogue. Like I feel like I think he had some level of plan.
I don't think he charged intending to die. I think he charged intending to do whatever he could do, got stabbed, and was like, well, that was a mistake on your part. Oh. Fuck you. I'm going down, but so are you.
And just, I mean, the name's Gambit, Monami. Remember it.
The name.
I just typed bad fucking ass. Like, and it's a callback to
the first
episode of the original series. You know, the title is Remember It, and clearly that is a reference to Remember the Pulse Massacre. Like, it's just such, like, the magic trick of being like, this is a fucking tragedy. Yes. It is referencing a tragedy. It is the death of joy.
And but it's also this triumph.
And it's,
is a triumph. And, like, to pull off all of that, again, in a cartoon where there is a character who is he bamfs and it smells like soot when he does it, and he looks like a dwarf.
Yeah, in the same show that Mojo exists in.
Yes. To the fans, we know it's sulfur, not soot.
Oh, sulfur. I'm sorry. Yes.
No. But like, but oh my God, it is like that. And because I've always loved that, like Gambit, I felt like they never did enough with his powers.
Yes.
Or like, I don't
very
think
powerful
he did it. I don't think he did. I think he was always like, he's got all of his like, I'm a piece of shit and I've done shitty things. I don't deserve it. But like when and it didn't feel like too powerful. Like it just felt like because it's deep. I mean, did we actually say yet that he leaps on the motorcycle? He charges the motorcycle. It blows Rogue away just off.
Just
balance,
to save her.
And then he's running at it and he jumps up.
With his glowing
and this is why I'm not sure if this was his plan. But like he couldn't have known it was going to stab him. But then that fucking smile.
Yep.
Where he's like, oh, you have not only fucked up, you have like put yourself into the core of me. Like I have direct contact. I will put all of my energy into this.
So much of him is like the cards motif, right? This is the moment where the other player shows their cards. It's like, motherfucker, I got you.
Yes.
You thought you had me and I fucking got you.
And the cool thing about it is, like, I remember watching it being like, oh my God, Gambit's going to die. And then like the slow reveal of the charge up, like the pipe charges up and then it's like the whole body's high. And it's like, it's almost like saying like, it's like a moment in a song where like the beat is about to drop. And it's like, it's about to drop and you can't wait for it. And then he drops that line. And it's like, this show is...
And I loved the design.
Go ahead. You go first. I'll go second.
I loved the design of the robot for so many things. But clearly, this was designed... So one, you guys mentioned how goofy the Sentinel heads look in the first episode. But that like things are goofy until they're not. Like how Daleks look really goofy to me. But like... when you were a kid and it reminded you of Nazis, it wasn't. And like, what was I talking about?
Magneto another flashback.
What was I talking about? Oh,
no. The Sentinel, the massive Sentinel heads, and
they became like skull heads. They became, and they were clearly designed to. It had armor to deal with all of the incredible, powerful mutants it was going to get, and because it was focused on those incredibly powerful mutants, it hadn't thought about something like Gambit, where
I think one of the things. Go ahead.
And where like he was able to charge that armor, like it didn't matter how strong the armor was, He made it the
Yeah.
explosion. And then the actual design of this, I loved that it was like a cockroach.
Mm.
Because
Oh, interesting. I
because
didn't think
like
about that.
there's this idea of like this thing that will not be killed no matter what you do. It's never
Yeah.
going to go away. And I also wondered if it was an intentional design that like people feel like they're cockroaches compared to
Hmm.
these new powerful mutants, you know?
Mhm.
And
Oh,
they're like
maybe.
the cockroaches are going to fight back.
I didn't, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
But it is this
What I wanted to
giant
point out,
ugh.
so there's the design in terms of like a still image, but I think one of the things that's really effective and why it's horrifying is as a unit, as a whole thing, it's slow, but its actions and its head are fucking fast. And it's this thing like it shouldn't be moving this fast. It doesn't move that fast, but it does.
I think Remy calls it like a some kind of Godzilla Sentinel thing when
Yeah.
they're still trying to be goofy.
Yeah. And I will say, and maybe this is just me, but anything that has like multiple interchanging
Yes.
faces is always very
Yes.
creepy. Like it has the three heads,
What
they
are
turn
you?
around. Like there's something very, I don't know, unsettling about that, like
Yeah.
that idea of having
Well,
multiple faces.
I think it
That's
The
touches
creepy.
a
face's
piece of like
identity and where's the real identity.
there's something
Sure, yeah.
really terrifying when a person like switches
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
sometimes you'll be with a person and then like something will trigger them and they'll become a different person and it's scary. And I think this
Hi guys.
that's exactly what I meant. Oh, hello. Welcome to the Edwin podcast where three Edwins talk about the X-Men.
Oh my God, our first Ed Wynn reference.
Put that in the
Honestly,
win
I'm
column.
surprised it took you 5 episodes. Woo-hoo.
Oh God. And I appreciate that as the audience, it happens. And part of me is, fuck no, don't kill Gambit. I love Gambit. The other half's like, you don't get a better
Yeah.
death than this in a story.
No.
You don't get a better
No.
death than this. Like you gotta.
And and then we get the extreme close up of Gambit's
Oh,
soot-covered face and his
her
blood on it,
tears.
and we just see Rogue's tears hitting his face.
And
Then
you
we
know
get
he's dead.
Sugar weeping,
Yeah.
cut to black. I can't feel you.
The tragedy. She
Like-
can finally touch him without hurting him because he's already
But
gone.
you
Yes.
can't feel
And
him.
it's yeah.
Yes.
And you also
It's-
know he's dead
It's proof
because they're
yes,
skin to
yes,
skin.
exactly.
There's no,
Yes.
if there
And
was
there's no reaction.
anything, if there was any life left in him.
And then that is it. We fade to black and we are sitting in stunned, sad silence.
With like this incredibly somber version of the X-Men theme.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did
Like-
notice that.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
but even somehow it was somber.
They play with that theme throughout the episode. I noticed it the second time. Like they kind of like pitch it up and down depending on what they needed to do. They really get their money's worth out of it. But yeah, I mean, Jesus, what a way. The cut to black and then I can't feel you is such a like just the final knife in your chest for this episode. Closing thoughts, like just what do you say after
Nothing.
this?
Yeah. Good night, folks.
Like honestly, I think they got it right. I
Yeah.
think any attempt to dissect it or break it down or anything diminishes what it is.
Yeah, I said it's hard to think of this as the best episode because it's so brutal, but it's probably the most
And
important
if we
episode.
grade it as did it do what it set out to do? Yes, in spades, and couldn't have done it better. It might this or episode 2 now are neck and neck for best episode of an X-Men cartoon ever. Magneto at the
Yeah, I
UN
mean-
and this I think this probably takes it.
Well, it's the fact that we get the first 75% of it is just like the joy and the world building, and then like and it just sucker punches you. Like it's just one of those things that does not get pulled off well a lot. Like there's the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, which is very famous, but like not a lot of things can do
Agreed.
this that well. Where like you're invested in the characters and you're like, where is this going? But you're just kind of enjoying the character moments. And then there's just such a well executed, like, I mean, it's a fight, it's a horrifying
Yeah.
tragedy.
It's not a feel good fight.
Different characters get these big moments. There's there's multiple tragedies with Magneto dying and other characters dying and Gambit dying. And it's just, and then like again, that ending is so like
visceral.
It
It's
just
visceral.
hits you with it. Like
Yeah.
it's like
They
a
treat it
period
with
at the end of the sentence.
oh, what's the word? The gravity it deserves.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, how like 75 9/11s, like
Yeah.
you can throw you could show terrible shit happening, but like to give it the silence that it needed.
Hmm.
That moment of just we are going to take our 36-minute cartoon and give you like 15 seconds of darkness. And then I can't feel it.
And here, and it's the willingness
Oof.
to do both, right? To have the sheer joy, to have this bleak, like respectful bleakness. No, nobody's undercutting it with some stupid joke. Like it is. This is a
Yes.
show that's like you're supposed to feel things, and we don't have to put the kid gloves on it. We can just accept that like you should feel really happy sometimes, and sometimes you should be horrified.
And they didn't there was no point where the fact that they had been partying was a problem. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't, oh, we let our guard down.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I mean, there were flavors of that, but like Magneto, I don't think Magneto was ever not ready. He's maybe the only one who doesn't have a moment of like, oh, fuck, what's happening? He's like, oh, no, it's the thing I thought was going to happen. But he also danced and
Yes.
played and flew and drank and.
Well, the thing about that is because for him it wasn't simply a political event.
Yeah.
He was dancing with Rogue.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. If not for Rogue, maybe he would have been more attentive to what was happening.
Oh.
But it's like Bo DeMayo is a friggin' genius.
I mean, not just him. There's
obviously
a whole team.
Absolutely. The team, the animators, the directors, the writers, the voice actors, and to have Rogue be the one to deliver that line, like she's usually such a funny character with like I feel like a long tail cat.
Oh my God, that line!
Is
that like the first episode?
She has a line. She has a line in this one where she says, "I feel like a wet bird on a live
you
wire."
two roosters
like
better chill down.
And so for
yes,
yeah, and so for her to have this final line, like that voice that is so synonymous with like funny quips and like that Southern charm, for that to be like this, like the devastating final line, is just like
they picked the right kid.
Again, it's a group of people who not just that they deeply love these characters, they understand these characters at a bone deep level and like how to make them work and also how to tell an effective story, how to visualize a story.
Their personalities, their powers, all of it.
There is a slight flavor of like, who could we kill that's not that integral, but is still.
Fuck! They're coming for me again.
It would be shocking.
Get me out of here, Moira.
No one gives a shit.
No
offense, Banshee. I love you, but like,
justice for Banshee.
Yeah, but he had this with Rogue, and he had this with Nightcrawler, and there's that moment where like, oh, can we talk? I know we're like at the end, but like I wrote down Kurt Wagner's like every cool Catholic priest that's ever existed rolled into one.
Yes. Oh,
right.
Big time. Big time.
They're out there, but like he has this line that like, where he's like, I'm just an old sinner, and he's like, there's no love. He's not.
There's no
Irish,
love
he's
without
German.
sin.
There's no love without sin, and just like
in what we forgive.
Oh,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Because he's right. There is no.
He's.
If people don't fuck up, there's no. I don't know.
It could be the corniest shit, or they could go silly, but they hit it just right on like, this is who Nightcrawler is. He just doesn't feel embarrassed to have sincerity.
They didn't.
Well, I mean,
I was just gonna say that they didn't ever play this for nostalgia. Like there are a lot of like.
Oh yeah.
Scenes. Yeah. Like we could talk about, like I can't remember exactly, but there's some scene where like Magneto, no, Remy is riding on the motorcycle and he like kills a bunch of things and like Akira slides and it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
But like they really, none of this is played for nostalgia.
No.
These are characters that they are bringing into the world we're all living in now. It is recognizing that you love these characters and why we love these characters, why they are important. Right. And this is not a story about something killing Gambit. This is about Gambit having the last laugh. oh, my internet connection is unstable. So this is good timing.
This is good timing. But yeah, this episode, I wouldn't change a thing.
You monster! Oh my
it's
God.
one of those things where it's like, how would you improve on this? I don't really think
They
you
used
can.
every second of airtime effectively.
It is so hard to tell a story about tragedy without it being just trauma porn.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
And at
it
no
threads the
point did it
needle.
feel
Yes.
like that.
It threads the needle.
It felt like this is the fear that people who do not fall into the mainstream have to live with at some level all the time. You can't ever put it down because, and even if you can put it down, but it doesn't go away.
Right.
So I prepared a goofy thing as a palate cleanser, and it just doesn't feel right. And I think
Good plan.
We can save it.
We'll save it for next time. I'm gonna just call it and say, not as a gimmick, but we will see you next time. Find John and their wife Megan at cactusheadpuppets.com. Our theme song was written and recorded by Cheer Captain. Find Cheer Captain at cheercaptain.bandcamp.com. To contact Matt or Brett, email us at manchildrenoftheatom@gmail.com.